In many of the movies that were analyzed during the semester, there seems to be a commonality, revolving around the theme of second and third generation Italian Americans who experience a slide in mental health when faced with the ultimatum of assimilating to American culture or upholding their traditional Italian cultures. This damage to Italian American mental health is visibly noticeable through sudden uncharacteristic and irrational behaviors that vary from physical, verbal, and sexual assault to the destruction of personal property and the utter mental breakdowns witnessed within characters throughout some of the films. This should truly speak volumes, rather, to the amount of stress and discrimination inflicted upon members of foreign cultures by American society, rather than pointing all of the blame inwards towards members of those cultures after they are harassed and discriminated against. Several movies with a prevalent portrayal of this cultural phenomenon that were analyzed in class are Tarantella and Big Night. A prime example of a situation of this nature can be seen in the film Big Night. At the beginning of the film, when Primo becomes extremely frustrated with an American couple at the restaurant who was unsatisfied with the risotto dish that he had made for them. "She is a criminal," proclaimed Primo, violently frustrated that the woman wanted spaghetti. Another starts with her risotto, which is untraditional in Italian culture. At first, Primo wants to talk to the woman, but after seeing her, he gave up with disappointment, saying, "No, I'm not going to talk to her. She won't understand anyways." Giving in, Primo begins to start making the spaghetti for her. However, not before throwing a pot across the kitchen floor in a fit of rage. The problem in this situation is not Primo, however. The problem is that he lives in an American society that lacks appreciation for foreign culture and customs. It is a classic case of the mainstream society Americanizing yet another culture and diminishing the authenticity, in this case of the Italian culture, within the American society. Just like how the readings from Chapter 10 detail the Italian-American cuisine evolving away from its authentic recipes to please the mainstream American culture. For instance, the addition of meatballs to spaghetti and the change of eggplant parmesan to chicken parmesan. If Primo wants to be able to make a living being a chef in this society, however, he is going to have to make watered-down versions of Italian dishes. However, doing so is also going to ruin the joy and passion he has for cooking, because it is not truly his work and his food that he is getting to serve to the people. The tantrum and outburst from Primo, however justified it may be, is still completely out of character for a respected and grown man such as himself. Another interesting scenario was encountered in the film Tarantella that deals with issues faced in Chapter 37 of the textbook. These problems surround the third and fourth generation Italian Americans who are now completely assimilated to the mainstream American culture and are becoming more and more distant from their Italian culture as more time passes. In Tarantella, Diane is a third generation Italian American who has become completely assimilated to the American culture and is pressured into assimilating into her Italian culture again after the death of her mother. However, Diane in this case resents her Italian culture and repeatedly states throughout the film how she feels like a stranger even within her own family. Towards the end of the film, there is a scene in which Diane comes to a complete understanding of why her mother shut her out for abandoning the Italian culture and still questions aloud, why couldn't she just love me anyways? In this moment, she's overwhelmed all at once by a culture and a reality that she can barely grasp the idea of. And you watch Diane as she enters a state of complete emotional distress and breaks down to her knees sobbing as she throws the can from her kitchen counter to the ground. Diane does eventually come to terms with her mother's decision and begins to embrace and appreciate her culture with the help and support of her mother's friend Pina. Once she begins to embrace her culture and heritage, Diane's vibe for the rest of the film, so to speak, completely changes. She was happier, she was more joyful, as if her culture was breathing new life into her. Tarantella and Big Night include two characters, Diane and Primo, who share very similar yet entirely different problems. While Diane is struggling with the idea of assimilating back into her Italian culture, Primo is struggling with the idea of assimilating from the Italian culture towards the mainstream American culture. And although they are polar opposites, both of their problems are created by the same thing: the inability of people to embrace and accept new and unfamiliar cultures, and the desire of those people to turn the unfamiliar into something recognizable and comfortable. However, when both sides are fighting one another for the prominence of their culture in a society, one side will always have to cave, and usually it is the minority, in this case, Italians. However, the disharmony present would be completely avoidable if those who shut out the unfamiliar would rather embrace it and appreciate unfamiliar cultures with an open mind and an open heart. That is the only way both sides will come to be at peace and content with each other and coexist within society.